Hi, this is Lily Cotilla. Welcome to Edging Life. This is one of those topics that's kind of offbeat, and I do think it is very important for couples or women of any age who are planning to have a child. The reason why I have this book here is because I want to share with you how the topic came about. It is and it is not directly related to traditional couples therapy. So this book called Moomintroll, or Finn Family Moomintroll, was my father's favorite childhood series growing up. So the correlation of how this topic came about is we were on a walk today and my dad said to me, in London, I don't notice a lot of moon children. And I thought about it for a moment because it's not a typical term that we use anymore. And I realized what he meant was children or adults with Down syndrome. And it dawned on me that I believe the reason for this, in comparison to him perhaps seeing, or statistically there being more children with Down syndrome in the US, has to do with the fact that in the UK and Europe, a Nuchal Translucency test is popular information and very often used for pregnant women at any age. This is not general educational material in which they provide American women with. So American women under the age of 35 have children with Down syndrome, believe it or not, more often than you would think, because insurance begins to cover testing for Down syndrome at the age of 35, when genetic risk goes up exponentially, or practically exponentially, each year thereafter. So insurance at that point in time will cover for what is called a CVS, I believe they cover for that, and or an amniocentesis. A CVS, or chorionic villi sampling, takes a little snippet of the placenta in between the 11th and 13th week of gestation to see if there are any chromosomal abnormalities via karyotyping, or the laying out of the chromosomes. Amniocentesis is drawn between 15 and 18 weeks, and it's taken from the amniotic fluid rather than the placenta, but the results are equally the same. People will often opt for the amniocentesis because they believe there's a less risk of spontaneous abortion. However, that's actually an erroneous belief, because the amount of natural miscarriages that happen between the 11th and 13th week mark are approximately in line with the CVS results, resulting in a spontaneous abortion, which is 1 to 3%. So really it doesn't increase it. It's just that the person makes more of an association that that's the culprit for it happening. Regardless, so for women of any age, since insurance does not cover amniocentesis and CVS, which are more definitive tests letting you know that your fetus and developing child is okay, people under the age of 35 in the States have an increased risk of having children with Down syndrome, because the traditional sonogram given at 16 weeks can often miss it. So my dad, not seeing many children with Down syndrome in the UK in comparison to the United States, I believe this is an important variable as to why this discrepancy exists. Nuchal translucency tests measure the nape of the neck and they are given in the 11th week of gestation. This is very important, the 11th week, because statistical analysis has been performed at this period in time. So if the nape of the neck of a developing fetus measures 1 millimeter or above, the likelihood and chances of your developing fetus having abnormalities, including Down syndrome, Spina Bifida and Anencephaly, but in particular Down syndrome, are highly likely. And it's early enough on where people of any age can confirm further via the CVS testing, as mentioned, given at the 11th to 13th week, and or the amniocentesis. Also, the AFP blood tests, or alpha fetoprotein, whether or not the results are in range of normalcy, contributes to being a good indicator of whether or not one might have a developing fetus with an abnormality. So, point being with this whole concept is that in the States, there are specially trained sonographers and or MDs who perform Nuchal Translucency measurement tests via specialized sonography. So you might be able to avoid the whole invasive procedures of CVS or amnio if the NT results come back within normal range, coupled with the alpha fetoprotein blood test. Again, this is not common knowledge. So if you know it ahead of time, you are the best advocate of your own health. You might have to pay out of pocket. If I recall correctly, it may be approximately around $1,100. I'm not sure if your insurance will cover it or not. But I did find it very interesting that this was an observation that my father had, and that it led me to thinking along these lines and sharing it with you, so that ultimately you have the choice. Doctors are doctors. We put them in such elevated status, and yes, they have lots of training and knowledge. That doesn't mean that country-wise, yeah, well, maybe, everything is available to you that is actually an option that's available to you. And nor does it mean that they are the expert and or decision maker of your life and your health. Your course of life, the choices you make medically are ultimately up to you. You are the best advocate of your own life and perhaps that of another. So keep it in mind. Nuchal Translucency Test, NT. And look it up. If it applies to you and or a friend, pass it on.